and welcome to Sim.bc, where it right now is 11:14. I know, it's kind of early noon. For me, it's a matter of perspective, right? I'm a bit of a student, so for me, it's the early morning. One can say that I'm so far off in the future in my planning that I'm starting to already work on my summer vacation when I'm going to work night shifts. Unfortunately, that isn't the case, no matter how much I would like it to be the case, but doesn't matter really, does it? What I would like to emphasize in the beginning of this video is that, well, a common denominator and a common theme of this month, of this week it should be, is probably going to be a bit stressful. Probably going to be for the entire month as well, because we have so many things to do. It's the final stretch. Yeah, it's the final stretch of university of all the 3 years. It all accumulates to this, which meant that, well, yesterday's video was kind of forced, kind of stressed, kind of pushed a bit, right? So if it wasn't clear, yesterday's video, 250, right? I'm very thankful for all of you who has stayed, who has watched the videos, who have subscribed, who's commented, who's been interacting with me. It's a hell of an experience, right? To be honest, and it really drives me every single day to make videos, and I think that this is hilarious, right? I think that this is really, a nice hobby, so to say, to do, right? So I have no problem with it. So yeah, if it wasn't clear of yesterday's video when I was talking a lot about stress, thank you all for watching the videos. Anyway, mates, that being said, today I thought, since I've been watching, and you probably get this from the title anyway, since I was watching Infinity War, right, I was also stating in all of my reviews that, to build some context, to establish some context, that, I like comics books, but not only that, but I've watched all the MCU movies up to date, except the Black Panther. So you know what we're going to get into today? We're going to get into a kind of a review of the Black Panther. Why? Well, because since it's a stressful week and I don't have the time to actually pre-plan and do all the research for a normal video that I usually do, I thought, why not make an experimental week? Yeah, since I already worked on it during the weekend, these different reviews, why not just throw myself in there? But you're not the movie reviews channel, and Black Panther was really long time ago. I can see your critique, believe me, I can see that. But I thought, for once, since it's an experimental video, it's kind of good that it was a long time ago that the movie actually aired. Why? Well, because that probably means, right, that people aren't going to be pissed if this review isn't 10 out of 10. Second of all, it brings up a lot of different perspectives. I've seen other people's reviews, I've been listening to other people talking about it, and now I've seen it for myself, so that gives me a kind of a new perspective on it, right? And third of all, well, if I'm not a movie reviewing channel, you all gotta start somewhere, right? And the first video, or the first couple of videos rather, are going to be the first couple of videos no matter what I'm gonna do. So, anyway mates, without any further ado, let's get into the review. And we're going to start off with a spoilery-free bit. And believe me, I'm going to say when it gets spoilery, right? So you don't have to worry about that. So, unspoilery, it's a really good movie. It's solid. It's I'd say an 8 out of 10. I think that the story is a bit forced at times, and I think that the pacing is like Infinity War. Something that was a rather common theme, I'd say. It was something that happened in Thor Ragnarok as well, even though I haven't reviewed it, so you don't know my thoughts about it, but maybe a future video, right? But the pacing is a bit forced at times, or at least that's how I felt. And I'm sure that this is because they were taking out unnecessary character interaction again. The same reason why I think that, well, Infinity War was a bit forced in its pacing as well. But I'm gonna say, for what it is and for what they deliver, I can understand why the pacing is like it is. Every second, or perhaps not every second in this movie, but every minute of the movie needs to be there. It fulfills a certain purpose to be there. There is nothing in the movie which is in there and you're sitting there and thinking like, wonder why this is in there. Another thing that I thought about when watching the movie, and that's probably partially based because I've heard other reviewers say it as well, was that I liked how they integrated African culture, or at least, right, if I'm wrong, my perception of what African culture is, right? Because this might not at all be a good representation of African culture, but I felt like it was a good representation of African culture together with a very advanced technological society, which is what Wakanda is. And I don't think that's a spoiler, mate, because you get that in the trailer. That said, though, Black Panther is easily one of my favorite MCU characters in the MCU, right? Why? Well, because he's an interesting character, and I think that the supporting cast in this movie is amazing. I went into this movie after seeing Civil War and Infinity War, right? So I was thinking, Black Panther is kind of cool. I didn't really get in Infinity War why you could see his eyes. I'm not down with that, right? I thought that it was much cooler in Civil War, but they give a good explanation as to why. Perhaps not why the eye thing, but why the costume is changed. And I totally got behind that when they were motivating it. But going into this movie, I was thinking about that, wow, Black Panther is really awesome, he's really cool, I want to see more of the Black Panther. So I was worried that the supporting cast was going to be shit in comparison, because yet again, you make this generalization and this rationalization when you're watching a movie, that you compare the really good actors with other good actors, but the good actors becomes bad in comparison to the really good ones. You see what I'm saying here? That kind of tends to be what happens. So perhaps if you took one of the characters from one of the bad characters, let's say, from a good movie and put them into a bad movie, they would perhaps be the really good character in that movie. You see what I'm saying here? It's all about relativity, right? Who are you comparing to what? But in this movie, I thought that T'Challa, so to say, or the Black Panther, the character, was almost the weakest of the bunch. I mean, you get that it's his movie, right? But they spent a sufficient amount of time developing his character, and they're really carrying over that you've seen Civil War, I'd say, right? Into the movie. So they're trying to develop the other characters as well, which I thought was amazing that they actually spent time on that, because as I said, walking out of this movie, I had so many theories about what can happen, especially about one character, and I was thinking, I really like that character more than the Black Panther itself, right? And that is his sister, Shuri. Anyway, mates, without getting into spoilers, solid movie. You should totally go watch it. It brings up yet again a lot of themes, which is probably something I'm going to talk about tomorrow. Gonna touch upon it today, though, in a while. But brings up a lot of themes and great character motivation for why things are happening. Now, it might be the victim of certain movie tropes, you know, they're trying to make a big WTF moment, but you kind of know that that's not gonna happen when you watch the movie. And so when it turns out that it didn't happen, you're like, okay, I kind of knew that. Anyway, mates, we're getting into spoilers now. Spoilers. So that means, if you didn't know, I'm going to talk about what's actually happening in the movie and giving out specifics, right? In order to review the movie. I'm not going to talk about the entire movie and give you the entire pacing of the movie in every single scene, but I might be talking about the ending and things that might make you a bit mad if you haven't seen the movie for yourself. Now, this movie came out in February in Sweden, so I hope that you've seen it if you're interested, right? Otherwise, keep in mind, spoilers, right? So the first thing that I want to talk about isn't the Black Panther itself. It isn't Wakanda itself. And well, it partially is. And it isn't the villains either. That was really good, by the way. I'm talking about Shuri. His sister. I think that's how you pronounce her name. I just saw it yesterday. Or I guess you can say it's this morning as well, because it's kind of carried over the morning, right? Anyway. She's a technological marvel, right? I mean, she's really smart. She's the one who's developing all of the tech for T'Challa, for the Black Panther. She's developing everything that he has. It seems like she's like the spearhead of the scientific department of, or the science department of Wakanda. And since you're working with something like vibranium that you can shape and mold into different sizes, into different shapes without losing its, structural integrity or its strength, in and within the MCU, of course, it just brings for such an incredible dynamic between the two, that you have the king of Wakanda, right, who actually works like a king. The Black Panther is the king. He's the protector of the entire country, and he's always composed. He's always talking like he is the king. You always get the sense of that this guy has a reasoning for why he's doing things, and I really like that. He has some weak parts of his character as well. I mean, you can see kind of wrath at times, that he's like mad, but it's in a good and composed way. Anyway, So that dynamic between him being serious, having the weight of his people on his shoulders, with his sister, who is really happy all of the time, and it's the scientific marvel again, which you can see later on in Infinity War, by the way, that when she talks to Bruce Banner, and when she's talking to, when she's discussing tech in general, right, which you probably can see in the trailers as well, so I don't think that's a spoiler. For that movie, you can really see how she's talking to them and saying like, why didn't you do this, for instance, in one of your designs? And they're like, well, we just didn't think about doing that. Really establishing how smart she is. So I knew that going into this movie, but she's really smart, and I can totally see her being the next Iron Man. I would love to see that if Iron Man bites the dust in Infinity War or the next movie. If you haven't seen them, right? Shouldn't spoil. Then I would love to see her pick up the mantle of being Iron Man. Or the Iron Lady, or whatever she's called, the Iron Maiden. Yeah, that's right, from the comics. And I was just sitting there, and I was like, dude, please let Robbie Downey Jr., just retire and give me Shuri as the Iron Maiden. I want to see this. Can't you? Oh, can't you just see it? Because in the ending as well, or in the final part of the movie, she has these blasters that she's developed, who's kind of panther-like or something. She puts them on her hands, and she's firing off sound waves or something. And it just feels like it's such a foreshadowing for an Iron Maiden character in the MCU, because you feel like, it's kind of Iron Man-esque. She's really smart. She's probably smarter than Tony Stark is in the MCU, and it just makes so much sense pushing that character in the direction of Iron Maiden, especially since I think that they're in New York in the end, or California rather, but they're in the US somewhere, and they're buying up these apartment buildings where their father killed their uncle or something. It's really an emotional moment. I don't want to diminish that moment, but it's really an emotional moment, and you feel, and T'Challa is saying that this is going to be the ambassador for, the ambassador, that's what you say, for Wakanda, outside of Wakanda, and you're going to work here, he tells his sister. So that is placing her in the US, which means that she's within the grasp of Iron Man, which means that they can probably have a team-up movie. I would love to see that. Anyway, that's probably enough about her. Or rather, it isn't, because making a smooth transition here, right? From just talking about her to talking about the rest of the movie. It's like a James Bond movie. Man, is it like a James Bond movie. I got all of these feels. They're at a casino at one time, but that's not really what struck out for me, because he's really... T'Challa, when he's outside of Wakanda, and he isn't the Black Panther, but he is T'Challa himself, or when he's working undercover or whatever, he's giving off this posture, right? He's giving out this aura around him that just feels so James Bond-esque. The way he walks, the way he talks, the way he behaves, he's talking with different agents, it's a bit of a secrecy. It just feels like a James Bond movie. Just gonna double check if this is correct setting on my microphone. No, it wasn't. Well, that's great. Haven't just spent half of my video talking like that. Anyway, that doesn't really matter. If it was a bit low, it was because the microphone was in the wrong setting. Anyway, which is amazing, but that's not especially what takes up the Bond-esque part of the movie. No, what is doing that is when he's, in the beginning of the movie almost. He is meeting his sister, and his sister is just presenting all of these gadgets that she has developed. He's getting a new suit, he's getting a new earpiece, he's getting a new, phone or something. He's getting a lot of new tech, and it just feels like such a typical James Bond setting when he's getting in before a mission at the beginning of the movie, or towards the beginning of the movie, and they're just going through, here Mr. Bond, here is the exploding pen, here Mr. Bond, here is the new car, here Mr. Bond, here is this and this and this, and it just feels like she's walking around and saying, hey Black Panther, this is your new car, hey Black Panther, this is your new suit, which suit do you want to have? I have a couple of ones developed, which is amazing, by the way. It totally makes sense that if she's so smart that she's developing different things. But what is happening is that when the villain comes in, Eric, when he comes back and he takes back the throne, he has all of these gadgets available to him, which just emphasizes the problem of the movie, that when he comes in and he's of royal blood and he takes over the throne of Wakanda, he has all of these amazing weapons that the Black Panther's sister has developed. So when you see them as something amazing and really cool, and something that can be used in the right hands to actually prolong and produce peace, right? For Wakanda in the beginning of the movie, and you just think they're amazing and funny. In the end, those exact things turns out to be really bad for everybody in the world, right? Or potentially it could expose a really large threat. And you're just like, that really puts things into perspective now, doesn't it? Also going to talk about the two villains quickly in the movie. There are two villains. I know, that's self-explanatory when I was saying that I was going to talk about the two villains, right? One of them is Eric, which is an outcast from Wakanda in a sense. I think he's been born outside of Wakanda. He has... it's the Black Panther's uncle's son, who was born outside of Wakanda, and therefore... the uncle wasn't sure if they were gonna take him in Wakanda, but it turns out that the Black Panther has no problem with that. At least the current Black Panther. The previous Black Panther, the one that was king before T'Challa, the one who died in Civil War, he has a bit of a problem with it because he kills his uncle for it, which sets this young kid off on this redemption story that or this story of vengeance rather, not redemption, this story of vengeance that he want to get to Wakanda and he want to get what is rightfully his, right? And what is so good with that character is that it all makes sense, and I'm going to talk about that tomorrow as well, because it was something that I was seeing in Infinity War as well, and partially in Thor Ragnarok. It just feels like the MCU is going in a new direction, both with its tone, because this tone of this movie, there's lots of killing going on, which I was like, interesting. Like on-screen killing as well, that you really see that they're killing, and for no apparent reason at times. You feel like, I understand why this character is doing this, but there wasn't really a need to do this, which is just establishing that the character is evil, and it happens so fast that you're like, wow, interesting that they're taking this direction. Anyway, something I'm going to discuss tomorrow, but there are some heavy themes, especially surrounding the villains. But I'm thinking that the MCU is taking a step in the right direction for the villains. It's just that they're already falling into form of a sort of a pattern, in my opinion. So I feel like, is this the way we're gonna go? It's gonna be really obvious what's gonna happen with all the villains, right? But it's still a good character motivation. But I'm gonna take that up tomorrow, as I said. Anyway. Then we have the second villain, who is played by the guy who's playing Smeagol and Gollum in Lord of the Rings. He's playing Snoke in Star Wars 7 and 8. And I cannot, for the love of me, remember what his name is. So that's a bummer. Anyway, that guy, is not playing a CGI character this time around. It's actually playing himself. He was the same guy who sold vibranium in Age of Ultron, Avengers Age of Ultron, as well. And he plays a fantastic role. He is hilarious all throughout the movie, as long as he's in it, because he does die a bit early as well. And I had this spoiled for me. I knew that he was gonna die, right? But I didn't think it was gonna die in the way he did, and I didn't think it was gonna die as fast as he did. So that was kind of a shock for me. So even though I went into the movie knowing that, this is an enjoyable character, too bad he dies. When he finally died, I was like, what, really? Like this? Interesting. Really interesting that they went in that direction with him. Maybe because he is a really expensive actor. Could be the case. Maybe they went for the WTF moment with the character that, well, you know this actor, you know this is a big A-list actor, and he still died. And you're just like, interesting. Anyway, that was... he was amazing in his role. Eric was, as Killmonger, was amazing in his role. The dynamic between the villains and the heroes are there they're really there. You can really see why the heroes are after the villains and why the villains, on the other hand, are after the heroes. And then at times it's hard to know, is Killmonger, who is coming back for the throne, who has royal blood since he's Black Panther's uncle's son, is he really the one that should be ruling Wakanda? And if so, how are all of the people going to respond? And how are the people that's going to be close to the current king going to respond to that? Because they do topple him and then they topple him again. So it's like, it's a change of thrones a couple of times in the movie. And a challenge of a kingdom a couple of times as well. But it's really good. It's really well done. I recommend it. I see that I have 10 seconds left. I unfortunately don't have time for a reshoot to get all of the things that I want to talk about in there. So I might talk them to race them tomorrow. Have a nice one, mate. See ya.